Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside, joined by Earl Eues, Director of Terrebonne Parish, Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. And so, Earl, welcome back to the show.
We're good to be here again, Keith.
I appreciate it. This 200 Terrebonne 200 bicentennial has been something that's been very a monthly event that's taken place and been very well attended.
It has, and it's been exciting to work with the committee on putting on these presentations that are going to be every month throughout this year. The 200 celebration is since Terrebonne has become a parish.
Right. Since the formation of the parish.
1822 to 2022. So it's a lot of parish employees, a lot of outside agencies, a lot of companies have come in and joined the parish into making this celebration an exciting event for the parish.
And it's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about, which is really interesting. And from an environmental standpoint, something that you have great expertise in, it's nice to be able to have some of those people who are kind of experts in those areas kind of talking about those things.
That's correct. I mean, the last three presentations that they did that's taken place, they've had some great speakers, some great interviews with local people, talking about the area businesses, and then I think they did one on transportation.
Right.
And then last month it was on military and law enforcement,
Which was really cool.
And they've been having great attendance. The presentations are at the Civic Center, and then they most of them I think are on the first Thursday of the month. And they begin at 6 o'clock in the evening,
Right.
and they've been having great presentations and lots of people showing up.
Well, and I think a lot of people like to follow that history, whether you're a history person or not. I think a lot of people like to know their roots and where it came from. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the four areas that you are going to be presenting and talking about.
So, and on the environmental section, we'll be talking about habitat loss, water quality within Terrebonne Parish, the environmental events that may have occurred throughout the 200 years, and environmental mitigation. And what you got to remember, though, is the importance of the environment has really not been in the forefront 200 years.
Right.
So
It's maybe been a quarter of that,
well,
or a little less, maybe.
maybe a little more than a quarter.
Okay.
Probably, maybe 50 years, 75 years.
Right. Okay.
So, we've had a lot of things happen in this parish that has affected the environment, good and bad.
Right. Right.
So yeah, we're excited. We have a presentation on habitat loss, which is going to be presented by Carrie St. Pay, who is the former director of the Barataria Terrebonne National Estuary Program.
Right.
Very knowledgeable about this area in regards to the loss of habitat and how that's occurred through erosion, through industry, and what we have done to try to repair some of that damage that may have occurred. And what are some of the things that people are talking about to replace that habitat loss?
Okay. Wow. And it's really interesting, I guess, from an environmental standpoint, better than ever a time to talk about it. The good earth, what Terrebonne Parish actually stands for, or what it means, we're the good earth. Checking out our environment and where we've come and what we've done and how to repair that is most unique.
So, some of the interesting parts of the habitat loss presentation, we're going to talk about some faults that exist in Terrebonne Parish.
Not man-made faults.
Not
man-made. These are natural faults.
These are natural faults.
Gotcha.
Like earthquake faults. Most people
Right.
can relate to that.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting presentation.
That's
The
really
second portion is the Terrebonne Parish water quality and water issues. Professional engineer Arthur DeFreitas, who was formerly with GSE and Associates here in Homa. They pretty much designed the water system in this parish, the potable water that we drink. They had a lot of involvement in the sewer system that was implemented in the Terrebonne Parish, and all of those things have affected the environment. So he's got a great presentation on how did that come about, and from the earlier days to now, and he's going to talk about what we call produced water. It's the salt water that comes up from exploration of oil and gas, and
Okay.
how that's affected our environment here in Terrebonne, and what we've done to prevent that from happening through legislation. So very, very knowledgeable. He probably don't want me to say this, but Mr. Arthur, I think, just turned 90 years old. Very, very knowledgeable. Kerry too. I mean, both of these guys have been a pleasure to sit down with on a monthly basis to talk about these programs and these issues, just because of the knowledge that they have.
Yeah, you ask a question and it's almost got a 10-part answer because they can give you all the history that predates them.
That's correct.
So
And
predating a 90-year-old, right?
well, yeah, and you're sitting there talking to these guys, and they bringing up stuff, and you sit there and you keep talking and talking and talking. Actually, on each one of these topics, we could probably do a whole session
On each one.
On each one. So they're going to be very short presentations, because the program is about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So we just can't sit there and talk about the whole issues.
Right.
But there'll be a question and answer session afterwards. And
Right.
if people have additional questions, these guys can answer these questions.
And it's really cool just to see whom you have assembled to be able to share this information. And you're basically going to the greatest resource we have about the resources that we have.
That's correct.
And that's just really
and
neat.
most of the presentations have done that. They've reached
Right.
out into the community to find these people that are knowledgeable about these subjects.
And interesting, we have all these experts coming on. You get a chance to do that as well as you change hats from Homeland Security and emergency preparedness to the things that you've always done and the passion you have for environmental services. You could share a little bit as well about some of the history there.
That's correct. So we have, a total of 4 presentations. The first is habitat loss. The second is Terrebonne Parish water quality. Then our third presentation will be on environmental events that have occurred within Terrebonne Parish. So one of the things we're going to talk about is invasive species. These are, mammals, plants, and other, biological mammals, but, plants, animals that have come in that are not native to Terrebonne Parish.
And there are quite a few.
There's quite a few of them. We're going to talk about 4 of those and the effects that they've had on Terrebonne Parish. One of the ones we're going to talk about is the apple snail.
Right.
Everybody's driving around the parish, seeing these pink egg-looking sacs on stalks and plants above the water line. Those are apple snails. They're not native to our area. They're eating up our vegetation. So we're going to speak about that. What you think? Nutra.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
We have a great presentation that we're going to talk about Nutra, how much it has, I call it deforestation or the marsh, eating up all the marsh. We have a good presentation on that.
Can I guess the next one?
Yes.
Asian carp?
No.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're going to move to plants.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
So we're going to talk about giant salvinia. This is a plant that's floating in our waterways, clogging up our waterways. Water hyacinths.
Right.
That's another thing that was introduced at a World's Fair, brought in, and now they're all over the place. How they're clogging up our water system and making issues, taking the oxygen out of the water at times and causing us fish kills and other issues. And then you can try to guess the next one. I'll just tell you it's a tree.
Oh, cypress.
No, that's native.
That's native. Okay.
So Chinese tallow tree.
Oh, okay.
And as a kid,
okay.
you called it a China ball tree.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
you used to take those and put them in your slingshot.
Yeah.
Throw them at everybody. Those are an invasive species. They're everywhere. They're taking over, all over the place. They're, beating out the Terrebonne National Estuary Program. Even had a program where they encourage people to remove those, try to dig them up, and because they grow, people put them in their yard because they grow fast.
Right.
But it's an invasive species.
And they root out.
And they root out and they produce these seeds that get spread all over the place and continue to spread that invasive species.
And young kids everywhere are sharing those, and they're growing everywhere because of slingshots.
Yeah, and then I don't know if they can get a slingshot anymore.
Yeah,
So,
one of my nephews has one, so yeah, they're very advanced.
Some of the other environmental events we're going to talk about is major hurricanes that affected our area. One of them is we have a great presentation on the last island hurricane.
Oh, right.
Where they had the resort was out there and everything. So we got a pretty good little presentation on that. The oil spills. We've had two major
Two
large
big ones.
oil spills that affected Terrebonne Parish. You can guess one.
Right.
BP.
BP,
The
right.
second one was a Lake Barre oil spill.
Right.
It's about 10,000 barrels of oil, very close to the marsh.
Right.
A lot
and that
more
makes it,
effect on our
Right.
parish
The
than
impact.
the BP oil spill.
right. Because it was
Environmentally, not economically, but environmentally. So
right.
there's a big difference there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the timber industry and how that
cool.
affected us. We had a large timber industry here. Donna, that's how the town of Donna, or the community of Donna, was formed, was
Right.
through the timber industry. And then we're going to talk about the oyster beds and the closure of some of the oyster beds due to pollution.
Right.
And what we've done to correct that.
Okay. And then what's our fourth one?
Fourth one is environmental mitigations.
Okay.
What we've done throughout the parish to try to mitigate some of these issues. This will be presented by Al Leveron, who's retired from Terrebonne Parish government as the parish manager. Very knowledgeable of the issues here in Terrebonne over the years that he has spent working for us. So he's going to do presentations on things that have been mitigated throughout the last few years, up to the regulatory. Okay, because that's all what's determined what mitigation was going to take place, is a lot of it is regulatory.
Right.
So these regulatory agencies haven't been into effect, maybe some of them 60 years,
Right.
70 years.
Which is a short
So
time.
a short time period. That's correct. So, he's going to talk about our levee system. He's going to talk about our wastewater simulation projects that took place here in the parish. The locking structures that were put in throughout the parish, saltwater intrusion, some produced water issues. So he has a very good program on the mitigation aspect here within the parish.
Man, who would have thought that environmental perspective on the parish would be so interesting? Because it really is. There's these four aspects. I mean, I would listen to 2 hours on each one of these.
Yeah,
honestly.
and you could. Okay,
Right.
and doing the research that I've done on my presentation, I've learned a lot just doing research. Most of us get on the internet, man. You get pushed to other subjects and other things. I mean, you just learn so much just sitting there researching these issues.
all the other things. Yeah. So again, that's on July 7th at 6 p.m.
At the Civic Center.
Yes. People can go and see you and a whole lot more of the experts from there.
Please come out and listen to the presentation.
Earl, we appreciate your time as always.
Glad to be here.
All right, guys, that will do it for this particular Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming here on HTV.